Okay, so I want to make a video because this is a video talking about the Edmonton police sharing an update on the city's gang landscape. This is just kind of a short clip that just goes over a few things, but I think it's pretty important, and we'll definitely talk about it a lot more because yeah, it brings a lot.
A rare look at gang activity shared by police in Edmonton Wednesday. Police estimating about 2,000 to 3,000 people in the region
2 to
involved in
3,000
various
people.
gangs or organized crime groups.
Just want to pause there. Edmonton has a population of about 1.5 million. If we take that population and divide that by about 2,500, which is right in the middle, we get this 0.001 repeating to infinity number. It just goes forever. So we have 1/100th of the population that we are talking about. And before we even proceed more, I want to take a couple of my favorite pictures that I have saved to my computers from one of my favorite books, which is called Memory Rescue, written by Daniel G. Almond. And this is a brain spec scan of a healthy brain. So that is what a healthy brain looks like. The next thing I would like to pull up is just the brain of somebody who is affected by alcoholism, heavy alcohol use. That is an unhealthy brain, all right? So now that we have this understood, I want to continue.
About a quarter of homicides linked to them, and sharing how Edmontonians can be aware and alert of gang activity
quarter of all
at a
homicides.
presentation for downtown groups. CityNews attended.
We talk about the need for people to pay attention.
We don't have a lot of homicides in Edmonton, by the way. I believe it was reported about 30, and that makes it about 7.5 on homicides. But when we take the fact that 7.5 of the homicides are caused by such a small percentage of people that we kind of know about,
their surroundings. We talk about the need for people to be aware of what's being communicated to them.
This sergeant in EPS organized crime branch shares how to identify those affiliated with two of the most active street gangs so the public can let the police know and not be intimidated from using spaces they have a right to be in.
I spoke earlier about hand signs or tattoos or graffiti. If people in our city are seeing those indicia or those signs, then we certainly want them to pay attention and then take steps to, one, protect themselves. We want them to not go into a situation like that ignorant and unaware.
Edmonton's relatively higher prison population and more prison release programs make the landscape unique. Gangsters are using the usual methods to recruit youth who are disconnected with the promise of wealth. Police also wanting downtown groups to know that they're aware of gang activity and to report it when they see it. City News will have more continuing coverage of gang activity. From Edmonton, Lauren Boothby, City News.
Okay, so I wanted to talk about this and address this because I grew up in group homes and I have worked with high-risk youth. So pretty much the children and youth who are targeted by gang members, and these people are the children that I grew up with. And as an adult, when I've tried to find and reconnect with them, the main thing that I met with is their obituaries. So most of them are not with us anymore. And that is the main thing that I'm looking to prevent from happening anymore. Okay, and since we were talking about gangs specifically, I asked AI, and it came up with the reasons why people join gangs. People join gangs to gain psychological and economical benefits, fulfill needs for belonging and protection, and because of negative social and environmental factors like poverty, unstable home lives, and lack of opportunities. Gangs can offer a sense of identity, brotherhood, status, and a way to acquire money or resources that are otherwise unavailable. Conversely, people may be pushed into gangs by fear, intimidation, or threats from rival gangs or community violence. Alright, now that we have that established, we can take into account the very clear signs that this is disproportionately affecting one group or race of people within Canada. This does not mean that that race is at fault for these problems. That is just means that they are being affected at greater numbers. Does not mean that they are the only people affected, they are just the most affected. And that is, of course, the Aboriginal First Nations people. So why is this disproportionately affecting Aboriginal First Nations people? Well, we could probably most effectively answer that by looking at the situation of the Red Alert member who fatally shot an Edmonton man being sentenced to 13 years in prison. One of the things that is mentioned in that news article was that a Gladue report found that Shortneck grew up in an environment of extreme turbulence caused in part by his family history of residential school attendance and children's services involvement. He grew up on the Lewis Bowl First Nation, one of 4 nations at Makawaskis. I probably slaughtered that name and I apologize. 96 kilometers south of Edmonton, and was the victim of gang violence on 3 occasions at a youth. And to anybody who's wondering what a Gladue report is, a Gladue report is a specialized pre-sentencing report in Canada that provides a court with information about the systematic and background factors in an Indigenous person's life that contribute to their involvement in the criminal justice system. Prepared by a trained Gladue writer, it explores the unique individual circumstances, often including experiences with colonization, residential schools, and child welfare, to help a judge determine a just and appropriate sentence that considers restorative justice principles and community-based alternatives to incarceration. So basically, all judges have to take extra consideration when sentencing Aboriginal criminals to actually incarcerate them. And a lot of times, these career criminals understand that, and they use and abuse the system to get in and out. The main people who this harms is the Aboriginal and First Nations people. When we're talking about things like the gang recruitment and them targeting children and what they're doing, they are using the rhetoric of the history of colonization to support all of their beliefs. Basically, when I worked with high-risk youth, some of the things I would run into is kids would come and say that we're unable to help them because this is just an institution made by the colonizers. So we have no chance at helping them, and only the First Nations people can help them. And hey, I don't even know what to say to that. Those were just kids that I worked with, you know. I've shown you pictures of brains, and yeah, I say it's more of an issue where gang members and people like that have bad brains. It's not a race thing, but when we have systems in the law such as Gladue reports that allow career criminals with bad brains to just be released into the community once again, the outcome will be felt on our children. I mostly want to advocate for the removal of any race-based sentencing differentials within law, and we look at it based on the actual cause and effect of the crime, and not take into the secondary and third factors. Because, once again, the people who it affects the most are the children. Thank you. If you liked my video, give me a like, give me a follow, all that stuff. Peace.